Welcome back. This is Teresa with My Crochet Obsession, and it is Tuesday. Take a Stitch Tuesday. So grab some tea, a hook, and some yarn, and let's get started. Today I want to demonstrate a woven stitch, also called the linen stitch or the alpine stitch, and use 3 different colors of yarn and teach you a way to bring up those colors without having to clip them and weave in all those pesky ends. Now this is some yarn that I bought from Temu some time back, and the unusual thing about the yarn from Temu is that the labels, for one thing, it's in Chinese, and another thing, what it says it is oftentimes it isn't. Like that lavender says it's milk cotton, and I did the burn test on it, and it is mostly acrylic. It may have some cotton in it. I don't read Chinese, but it's mostly acrylic. The pink and the yellow is definitely acrylic, and it says use a size 2 to 3 millimeter hook. The lavender says to use between 4 and 5.5 millimeters. So I have chosen a 3 millimeter hook to use today for this project. Now, the linen stitch is so easy if you know your how to chain and how to single crochet. You got this. As with most everything in crochet, we're going to begin today with a slip knot. The stitch multiple for this linen stitch is any even number. I am going to chain 40, and that's going to, with this size yarn and crochet hook, it's going to give me a length of about 10 inches by the time we get done. Whenever you get to the desired chain length for your project, you will need to chain 1 more. And here is my chain 1. And now I'm going to go into the back bump of my foundation chain to the second back bump in the chain. I like to use what I call that back bump in my foundation chains because it makes a nice finished edge when we get done. I'll show you that when we get there. So all the way down the full length of your starting chain, you will single crochet back to the beginning chain. And here we are at our final chain, the very first chain that we made with our single crochet. And this is what our work looks like. You see the beautiful edge on this side and the other edge. By going into that back bump, they both look the same. And now chain 1 and turn your work. Single crochet back into that same stitch. That chain 1 does not count as a stitch. And then you chain 1 after the single crochet, skip a stitch, and single crochet in the next stitch. Chain 1 and single crochet, skip a stitch and single crochet in the next stitch. And that's our pattern repeat. Chain 1, skip a stitch, and single crochet in the next stitch. Again, chain 1, skip a stitch, and single crochet in the next stitch. And repeat that same pattern all the way down to your beginning single crochet. You should end in a single crochet on this row and every row throughout this stitch sample. And here we are at our last chain and single crochet. Now, I have finished this single crochet just to demonstrate the stitch pattern. This is where we're going to change our color. So don't actually finish this single crochet. Grab your next color and we'll add that color here. If you're more comfortable starting with a slip knot to add this second color, please do that. I am going to just loop the new color and pull up that loop as well as my lavender loop, and then I'm going to take the yarn tail as well as my working yarn on the yellow and pull that through that first loop. Turn my work and place a single crochet back into that first stitch where I pulled up my new color. I have 2 loops on the hook. I'm going to insert my hook into that first stitch, pull up a loop, and then pull through all those loops. That'll be the last time I have all those loops on the hook with the yellow. Chain 1 and insert the hook in the chain space from the previous row. Chain 1, single crochet in the chain space from the previous row. Chain 1, single crochet in the chain stitch from the previous row. Chain 1 and single crochet in the chain space from the previous row. And this is your pattern repeat for the remainder of this row, all the way to the end. Again, remember, you should end with a single crochet. Even if you have to put 2 single crochets in a row, at the end of the row, you will always end with a single crochet in this stitch pattern. And we're coming up on our final single crochet, and here you see we have 2 together. Do not close this last single crochet. This is where we'll add our 3rd color. And this is how our work looks. There is a bit of yarn management with the linen stitch using multiple colors. So your last color that you've used, you need to pull it over to the right if you're right-handed. Get it out of the way before you add your new color. Just as we added the 2nd color, add the 3rd color in the same manner. I'm going to be pulling up both the yellow and the pink loop through my last single crochet and then pulling through the working yarn and the tail through again before I make my first single crochet. Here you see I moved the lavender yarn to get him out of the way too, so that I can just work with my new color, my pink yarn. Little adjustment on the previous yarn, and then once again single crochet into that first stitch, pull through all the loops. Chain 1, single crochet in the chain space from the previous row. Chain 1, single crochet in the chain space from the previous row. Same pattern as the yellow, and we will repeat that pattern for all of the colors in every row. So you see the pattern repeat is so easy. Chain 1 and single crochet in the chain space from the previous row, all the way to the end of this row. And here we are at our final single crochet, and this is where we will pull up our first color, which is the lavender, and that's how we'll complete that last single crochet, by pulling up a loop of that color and chain 1. Turn your work, and this is what our work looks like. This is a good time to adjust your yarn. Each time you change colors, move your yarn over into the right position to where your working yarn is on your left and the other 2 colors are where they need to be, so that your yarn doesn't get tangled up each time you turn. Exactly as we stitched the previous row, you will single crochet back into the first stitch, chain 1, and single crochet in the chain stitch from the previous row. Chain 1 and single crochet into the chain stitch from the previous row. And that is your pattern repeat for this row and all the remaining rows, all the way to the first single crochet of this row. And once again, we are at the end of the row, our final single crochet, and we will pull up the yellow yarn to close this final single crochet, and chain 1 and turn your work. And this is what the work looks like. Again, this is a good place to rearrange your balls of yarn so that your yarn does not get tangled up. Just as we have done on the previous rows, you'll single crochet in the first stitch, chain 1, and single crochet in the chain space from the previous row. Chain 1 and single crochet in the chain space from the previous row. And that is your pattern repeat once again on this row all the way to the last single crochet. And there again we will be making a color change, so you won't close that last single crochet with the yellow. We will bring up our new color of the pink. And here we are at that last single crochet. Right here. And we will pull up our next color change, which is the pink. And that's how we'll close that previous single crochet. Chain 1 and turn your work. Again, this is a good place to do some yarn management, to rearrange your balls of yarn so that they don't get tangled up. I'm having a hard time deciding exactly where I want these balls of yarn. So I'm doing musical yarn chairs. All right, now I'm happy with it. I've chained up and I'm going to single crochet again back into that first stitch, chain 1, and single crochet into the first chain space from the previous row. Single crochet, chain 1, single crochet in the chain space from the previous row. And that's your pattern repeat once again for this row and all remaining rows. And once again, we're at the final single crochet, and this is where we will pull up our color. Take a look at your work before we pull up our next color, which is lavender in this case. So we'll pull that last loop out after we've looked at our work, and we pull up the lavender with a loop and chain one before we turn our work. Once again, here's a good place for yarn management. Exactly as we did before, single crochet in that first stitch from the previous row. Chain one and single crochet in the first chain space from the previous row. And that is your pattern repeat for this entire row. Once again, we're at the last single crochet of this lavender row, and we're going to pull up our new color, the yellow. Chain one and turn your work. Again, it's a good place for some yarn management. Begin again. Chain one, turn your work, single crochet in the very first stitch. Chain one, single crochet in the first chain space from the previous row. Chain one, single crochet in the chain space from the previous row, and that's your pattern repeat. Continue this pattern repeat as well as how you pull up your new color at the end of the rows until you have your crochet fabric the size that you want. And once you have your crocheted fabric the size that you want, this is what it should look like. There's only one more row of stitching that should go in your last row. But before I do that, I want to cut the yarn of the two colors that I'm no longer going to use. I began with lavender, the color lavender, therefore I want to stop in the color lavender also. And this is how we finish off that row. You chain up one and turn your work and single crochet into the first stitch, just like we've done on all the other rows. But this time you're going to single crochet in every stitch all the way across. And as we arrive at our last single crochet on our last row, then we will pull up a loop and clip our yarn. Your linen stitch crocheted fabric is perfect for garments because it is such a dense fabric, it is very warm. But it's ideal for washcloths and blankets. And you see that the finished edge is very straight. Both the beginning edge and the finished edge look exactly alike. The linen stitch is also reversible in that it looks exactly the same on both sides. The sides where you pulled up your colors looks like a braided rope and is a beautiful finished edge by itself. Thank you for your time today. If you got anything from this video, I hope that you will like, subscribe, and come back again for more crochet tutorials. And until then, keep calm and crochet on.